Parasite Eve is a game that has lived in the shadows of gaming history, a title that managed to captivate players with its unique blend of survival horror, RPG mechanics, and cinematic storytelling, yet somehow never received the modern treatment it truly deserves. Originally released in 1998, the game introduced us to Aya Brea, a strong, compelling protagonist caught in a world where mitochondria, yes, your body's powerhouses, suddenly evolve and wreak havoc. Despite its critical acclaim, Parasite Eve never fully evolved into a franchise capable of maintaining consistent releases, leaving fans nostalgic for a revival that never quite materialized. The series' combination of tense exploration, turn based combat with real time elements, and a narrative that blends science fiction with horror is still compelling today, but it's clear that a traditional AAA revival might be tricky. Square Enix has its priorities elsewhere, focusing on massive franchises like Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts, leaving Parasite Eve in a state of quiet limbo. This begs the question, could indie developers be the key to saving Parasite Eve and perhaps even reintroducing it to a new generation of gamers? Indie studios have proven time and time again that they can breathe new life into dormant franchises and ideas that might be considered too risky for larger publishers. Look at games like Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, which captured the essence of classic Castlevania in a way that only a passionate indie team could, or Undertale, which redefined what a narrative driven RPG could be on a smaller scale, proving that innovation often thrives outside of the AAA space. Parasite Eve, with its unique mechanics and story, seems tailor made for an indie revival. Smaller teams could focus on enhancing the survival horror elements, tightening combat, and expanding Aya's story without the pressure of catering to massive mainstream expectations. Indie developers can take risks, experiment with new gameplay mechanics, or even explore the horror RPG hybrid in ways that a huge studio might avoid due to commercial risk. What makes Parasite Eve so ripe for this kind of revival is its DNA. It's part horror, part RPG, and part cinematic experience. Indie developers could modernize it while remaining faithful to its core identity. Imagine a game where AI's combat system is refined to include dynamic stealth and strategic resource management, where the horror elements are more psychological and pervasive rather than relying solely on jump scares. The atmospheric tension, the sense of isolation in New York City, and the creeping dread of mutation could all be amplified using modern indie tools. With engines like Unity and Unreal Engine becoming more accessible, smaller teams now have the technical capacity to create visuals and animations that will evoke fear and awe while staying true to the original's charm. They could even expand the narrative, diving deeper into Aya's psyche or exploring new characters affected by the mitochondrial outbreak, something that wasn't possible within the constraints of the original game's scope. Crowdfunding also gives indie developers a direct connection to the fans who care most, and the Parasite Eve community is passionate and vocal. A well run Kickstarter or Patreon campaign could ensure the project not only has funding, but also a built in audience ready to engage with every update. Unlike AAA studios, indie developers can respond to community feedback quickly, iterate on ideas, and craft a game that feels like it belongs to the fans. They could also experiment with episodic content, releasing smaller story segments that allow Aya's story to unfold gradually, keeping players engaged over time without the pressure of a full scale launch. There's even room for spin offs or reinterpretations, a narrative heavy adventure, a tense survival horror experience, or even a roguelike RPG that maintains the mitochondrial mutation theme while providing replayability and challenge. The risks are not insignificant, of course. Indie developers often face resource limitations, tight deadlines, and the challenge of capturing the exact feel of a beloved franchise. Parasite's Eve mixture of RPG and horror is delicate. If mishandled, it could alienate fans who are attached to its unique atmosphere, but the rewards could be massive. A successful indie revival could reignite interest in the franchise, attract new players who may have never experienced the original, and prove that older IPs don't need to be confined to the vault just because big studios have moved on. With creativity, focus, and a deep understanding of what made Parasite Eve special, indie developers could craft something that respects the past while innovating for the future. Ultimately, the question isn't just whether Parasite Eve could be saved by indie developers, It's whether the industry is ready to recognize that some ideas are too bold, too niche, or too unusual for AAA risk calculators, but perfect for passionate smaller teams. In a gaming landscape where nostalgia is a commodity and innovation is constantly sought, Parasite Eve represents an opportunity for indie developers to show that they can not only preserve, but also enhance a classic experience. Fans have waited decades for Aya Brea's story to continue in a meaningful way, and the indie sector might just be the place where this revival can happen without compromise. If a team with the right vision, respect for the source material, and ambition were to take on Parasite Eve, it could redefine what it meant to revive a classic game and perhaps even inspire larger studios to take note of what smaller teams are capable of. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. And if you want to support my channel, check out my Patreon, where the latest exclusive is a deep dive into games that changed their genre forever. Parasite Eve may not have had the revival it deserved yet, but who knows what indie developers could do with a chance to bring Aya back into the spotlight. Until next time, game on.